The laughter started before Claire Bennett even reached the front row. It rolled through courtroom 3B at Ridgway County Courthouse, Ridgway, Westmont. Soft at first, then louder as heads turned and saw who had stood up. A girl in a thrift store blazer that still had a creased tag on the sleeve. Sneakers that squeaked on the polished floor. A thick binder hugged to her chest like a shield. The bailiff's voice cut through the noise. All rise. Judge Raymond Hale entered with the steady, unhurried pace of someone who controlled time in this room. He sat, looked down at the file, and didn't bother hiding his impatience. Daniel Brooks, the clerk read. Docket number 24 CR 1189. Charges, felony theft, fraud by deception. Daniel Brooks stood at the defense table. He looked like a man trying to keep his spine from folding in on itself. His hands were clean, roughened by work, and trembling anyway. The prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney Diane Marshall, already had her notes lined up like a wall. Judge Hale peered over his glasses. Mr. Brooks, you're here without counsel. Daniel cleared his throat. My public defender. He said he couldn't. He had too many. Enough, the judge snapped. You have the right to an attorney. You also have the right to represent yourself. Which is it? Daniel swallowed hard. I don't have money for private counsel, Your Honor, and I can't keep getting continuances. My job, my house. That's when Claire stood up beside him. Not behind him. Beside him. The room shifted again. A few people leaned forward like they were watching a dare. Judge Hale's eyes narrowed. And you are? Claire's voice came out steady, even though her face was pale. Claire Bennett. I'm his daughter. The prosecutor's mouth twitched like she was trying not to smile. Judge Hale set his pen down slowly. Mr. Brooks doesn't have a daughter listed in the file. Claire lifted her chin. I'm his daughter in every way that matters. A few whispers. A small laugh. The judge's eyebrows rose, unimpressed. Claire took one step forward. Your Honor, I'll defend my dad. For a half-second, the courtroom went quiet like the air got sucked out. Then the laughter hit harder. Someone in the back actually snorted. Even the court reporter's shoulders shook. Judge Hale didn't laugh out loud. He did something worse. He smiled. It was a small, tired smile, like he'd seen too many people confuse courage with reality. Miss Bennett, he said, voice flat. This is a criminal court, not a debate club. Sit down. Claire didn't sit. I know, she said. I also know the state's case depends on one piece of video, and nobody here has confirmed the original file's chain of custody. The prosecutor blinked once. Judge Hale stared at her. Excuse me. Claire hugged the binder closer. The state says there's CCTV footage from Stanton Industries. It's on a drive, but the report doesn't list who imaged it, when it was sealed, or whether it was hashed. If that drive gets overridden. Objection. Diane Marshall snapped automatically, even though nobody had asked a question. Judge Hale's eye stayed on Claire. Miss Bennett, you are not a lawyer. I'm not pretending to be, Claire said. I'm asking you to order evidence preservation, because if the original footage is altered, an innocent man can't unalter it later. The bailiff took a step toward her. Judge Hale lifted a hand. Hold. His voice sharpened. Where did you learn words like hashed and imaged? Claire swallowed once. From my mom. Before she passed. She was a court reporter. She used to tell me the truth always leaves a trail, especially digital truth. One detail didn't fit, and Judge Hale felt it too. He leaned back. Miss Bennett, you can't defend anyone in this courtroom, but you can speak briefly as a concerned family member. Briefly. Claire nodded fast. Thank you. Diane Marshall stepped forward, tone smooth. Your Honor, this is theatrics. The footage is already in evidence. Mr. Brooks is on camera removing a sealed equipment case from Stanton Industries at 9:14 p.m. The company's security manager identified him. His badge access matches. This defendant is attempting to delay the inevitable. Claire's eyes flicked to the prosecutor. Which camera angle? The prosecutor paused. Camera 2. North corridor. Claire opened her binder and slid a single page onto the defense table. Then why does the still frame in the police report show Camera 2's overlay, when Camera 2 at Stanton Industries doesn't use overlays? It's a digital system. Overlay would mean it was exported with software after the fact. A murmur ran through the gallery. Judge Hale's gaze sharpened again. Ms. Marshall. Diane's jaw tightened. The video was provided by the company. The police retrieved it. From whom? Claire pressed. Name, date, time, evidence bag number. The bailiff shifted closer again, ready to end this. But Judge Hale didn't look away. That's when everything changed. He turned to the clerk. Does the file include a property receipt for the video drive? The clerk flipped through papers, then hesitated. There's a submission note from Stanton Industries. No property receipt attached. Judge Hale's pen tapped once on the bench. Ms. Marshall, why is there no chain of custody form for the cornerstone evidence of your case? Diane recovered quickly. Your Honor, we can provide it. The police department has standard procedures. The video is authentic. Claire's voice stayed calm. Authentic isn't a feeling. It's a process. Judge Hale's eyes narrowed again, but not with mockery this time. Miss Bennett, you're testing the patience of this court. Claire nodded. I know, but if we lose the original file, we lose the only chance to prove the truth. Judge Hale stared at Daniel Brooks, who looked like he was barely breathing. Then he looked back at Claire. Mr. Brooks, the judge said, you will be appointed counsel. I will not let you stumble through a felony trial alone. Daniel's shoulders sagged with relief, then fear. Thank you, Your Honor. Judge Hale turned to the prosecutor. And I'm issuing an order. Stanton Industries will preserve all original security footage, all system logs, and any exported copies related to this incident, effective immediately. Diane Marshall opened her mouth to object. Judge Hale cut her off. Do you want a suppression hearing later because you failed to preserve evidence? Because I don't. The gavel hit once. Court adjourned. Claire exhaled only after the doors closed behind them. But then, outside the courtroom, Diane Marshall didn't look at Daniel Brooks. She looked at Claire. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. You're going to hurt your father, she said quietly. You're a kid. This isn't a movie. Claire's hands clenched around the binder. It's not a movie. That's why I'm not guessing. Diane's lips tightened. Stanton Industries is a respected employer in Ridgeway. They don't frame people. Claire's gaze didn't drop. Then they won't mind proving it. That afternoon, a young legal aid attorney introduced herself at the courthouse hallway benches. Nora Blake was 24, fresh-faced, suit a little too big, eyes a little too tired. She sat beside Daniel and spoke softly, like she was trying to keep a fragile thing from shattering. I'm appointed to your case, she said. I read the complaint. It's aggressive. Daniel's voice cracked. I didn't steal anything. I worked there for 9 years. I fixed their security doors, their badge readers. I built half that building with my hands. Nora nodded, then looked at Claire. And you're the one who raised the chain of custody issue. Claire stiffened. I'm not trying to take over. I'm glad you did, Nora said. Because if the video is the spine of their case, we break the spine by proving it's weak. Claire opened her binder. I have questions. A lot. Nora gave a small smile. Good. Bring them. But then, when Nora requested the original CCTV drive, through discovery, the response came back like a slap. Stanton Industries would provide a copy. Not the original. Just a copy. And the Ridgeway Police Department said the same thing. The company handled the export. Claire read that line twice, then a third time, like she could force it to change. They didn't retrieve it themselves, she whispered. Nora shook her head. That's what it says. Claire's mouth went dry. So the evidence started in the hands of the person who benefits most. Nora glanced around the hallway, then lowered her voice. Victor Stanton. Claire's eyes narrowed at the name. She'd heard it on the news, in school fundraisers, on plaques in the courthouse lobby. Victor Stanton donated money, sponsored programs, shook hands with officials like he owned the air. and now her dad was accused of stealing from him. One detail didn't fit, and Claire couldn't let it go. That night, she sat at her bedroom desk in Ridgeway, Westmont, a cheap lamp buzzing, a legal pad filled with handwriting that looked too grown for a 16-year-old. She drew a timeline. 9:14 p.m., alleged theft, per complaint. 9:16 p.m., security manager observes removal. 9:22 p.m., police called. 9:41 p.m., officers arrive. And then she wrote what no one else had written. What happens to the file between 9:14 and the courtroom? She remembered her mother's voice from years ago, soft and firm at the same time. Claire was 10, sitting at the kitchen table, while her mom highlighted transcript pages. "You see this?" her mom had said, tapping the paper. "Words matter in court, but evidence matters more." Claire had scrunched her face. "Evidence like fingerprints. Evidence like timestamps," her mom had said, "because a lie can be loud, but a timestamp is stubborn." Claire had smiled then, not understanding. Now she understood too much. Her mom had died 2 years after that conversation. A sudden illness. Hospital beeps. Quiet hallways. A promise made at a bedside. "I'll be brave," Claire had whispered. "I'll make sure nobody gets crushed by something fake." That promise wasn't poetic. It was a vow with teeth. But then, the next week, Nora finally got access to the CCTV drive. Not the original, as promised. A sealed drive delivered by Stanton Industries' security manager himself, handed over in a plain envelope, not an evidence bag. No police signature, no property sticker. Claire stared at it in Nora's small office, above a laundromat that smelled like detergent and old carpet. "This is how they gave it?" Claire asked. Nora's jaw tightened. "I know." Claire didn't touch it. "We need an independent expert." Nora nodded, already thinking that. They hired Clara Grant. Clara was 38, an independent forensic analyst with a calm face and eyes that didn't miss anything. She didn't talk like a TV scientist. She talked like someone who'd spent years watching people try to cheat systems that were built to record truth. She set the CCTV drive on the table like it might bite. "First rule," Clara said. "We don't plug this into just anything. We image it." Claire nodded like she'd been waiting her whole life to hear that sentence. Clara pulled out a small right blocker device and connected it carefully. Right blocker prevents the computer from altering anything on the drive. Even opening files can change metadata. Nora watched, fascinated. "So the first thing you do is..." "Create a forensic image," Clara said. "Then we generate hash values. Think of it like a digital fingerprint. If one byte changes, the hash changes." Claire's hands trembled slightly. "And if the hash doesn't match later, it means someone touched it," Clara finished. That's when everything changed. Because when Clara ran the first check, she paused. Just for a second. And Claire saw it. "What?" Claire asked. Claire didn't panic. She just pointed. "File creation timestamp." Nora leaned in. "What about it?" Clara tapped the screen. The clip labeled camera 2_North Corridor _0914 p.m. The file claims it's from 9:14 p.m., but the file itself was created at 2:03 a.m. the next morning. Nora's brows shot up. Could that be normal? Like exported later? Clara nodded slowly. Exporting later can be normal, but then the system should show an export log, a record. Also, the overlay you mentioned, some systems added on export. Claire's heart hammered. So it could still be legit? Clara looked at her calm. It could, or it could be edited. We don't guess. We test. She opened the file. The footage played. A corridor. Harsh fluorescent lights. A figure in a work jacket. A rolling case being pulled out of a secure door. A timestamp overlay in the corner reading 9:14 and 32 seconds p.m. Nora frowned. That looks like him. Claire stared harder than anyone. Zoom in. Clara paused, then zoomed. The figure's face was partially hidden by a cap. The body's shape was similar to Daniel's. The gait close. But Claire didn't look at the face. She looked at the corner of the screen. At the timestamp. At the seconds. At the way the overlay flickered. One detail didn't fit. Claire pointed. That flicker. Why does the 4 and 14 blur every other second? Claire's eyes narrowed. Good catch. She advanced frame by frame. The overlay wasn't stable. It shifted slightly, like it had been added on top of the video rather than generated by the camera. Clara pulled up the file's metadata, then the codec structure. Then she leaned back. This clip has splice points, Clara said quietly. Nora blinked. Splice points. Clara pointed at the timeline. See these discontinuities? The video stream resets. That can happen during a camera glitch, but it's suspicious when it happens exactly at key moments. Claire's throat tightened. Can you tell if it was edited? Clara didn't rush. We can tell if it was recompressed. If it was exported multiple times. If frames are missing. If audio doesn't match. This clip has no audio, so we focus on frames. She highlighted a section around the moment the figure's hand reached for the secure door. There, Clara said. A missing group of pictures. A GOP break. That suggests a cut. Nora's face went pale. So someone edited the footage. Clara held up a finger. It suggests editing. We need comparison. Comparison to what? Claire asked. Clara looked at the drive. To the original. Or to other camera feeds. Or to system logs. Nora exhaled, frustrated. And Stanton won't give the original. Claire's eyes hardened. Then we forced them. But then, the system pushed back. Hard. At the next hearing in courtroom 3B, Judge Hale looked annoyed before anyone spoke. Diane Marshall stood with new confidence. Your Honor, the defense is playing games. We have clear video. We have a signed statement from Stanton Industries' security manager. We have motive. Mr. Brooks had access. He knew the blind spots. Nora rose. Your Honor, we request an evidentiary hearing on the CCTV drive. We believe the footage may have been altered. Diane scoffed. Based on what? The imagination of a teenager. Heads turned toward Claire. Judge Hale's gaze flicked to her, then away like she was a distraction. Nora pressed. Based on forensic analysis. Diane cut in. The defense hasn't even disclosed an expert report. This is delay. Judge Hale leaned forward. Ms. Blake, if you're suggesting tampering, you need more than vibes. Nora held up a folder. We have preliminary findings from an independent forensic analyst, Clara Grant. Diane stepped forward fast. Your Honor, we object to any report produced from a drive the defense has had unsupervised access to. They could have manipulated it themselves. Claire's stomach dropped. That was the move. Flip the suspicion onto them. Judge Hale's voice cooled. Ms. Blake, chain of custody cuts both ways. If the defense wants to claim alteration, you must show your own handling was clean. Nora nodded. We used a write blocker. We imaged the drive. We generated hash values. Diane raised her brows. And who witnessed that? A 16-year-old. Laughter again, smaller this time, but sharp. Judge Hale's mouth tightened. Miss Bennett, you will not speak in this proceeding. Understood. Claire's jaw clenched. Yes, Your Honor. Good, he said. If you interrupt, I will have the bailiff escort you out. Claire sat perfectly still, hands locked together, nails digging into skin. But then, Diane Marshall dropped her next punch, like it was already rehearsed. We also have additional evidence, she said, and held up a printout. A still frame from the CCTV clearly showing Mr. Brooks' face. Nora blinked. That wasn't in discovery. Diane smiled. We received it this morning. The company recovered it from a backup. Judge Hale's gaze snapped to Nora. Ms. Blake, you're not entitled to surprise. Nora's voice strained. Your Honor, we are entitled to timely disclosure. Diane turned slightly, like she wanted the courtroom to see her generosity. We're disclosing it now. Judge Hale looked irritated. Ms. Marshall, I don't like trial by ambush, but I also don't like delay. If you have evidence, present it. Defense can respond. The still frame was passed up to the bench. Then the screen at the front lit up. The image was grainy, but clearer than the earlier clip. A face under a cap. And for a second, it looked like Daniel Brooks. The gallery murmured again. Daniel's shoulders sagged. Claire felt the room tipping. One detail didn't fit, and Claire could feel it like a splinter under the skin. She stared at the still frame until her eyes watered. Then she saw it. The badge lanyard on the figure's chest. Her dad never wore his badge on a lanyard. He clipped it to his belt. Always. Because he told her once, smiling. Lanyards get caught indoors. Claire leaned to Nora, whispering fast. That's not him. Nora whispered back, tense. I need proof. Claire's eyes stayed glued to the screen. The still frame had a time code. 9:14 and 32 seconds p.m. The bottom right corner showed something else. A tiny camera ID string. And Claire realized something that made her stomach turn cold. That camera ID wasn't from camera 2. It was from camera 4. But Diane had sworn it was camera 2. Claire's heart slammed. Tampering wasn't just in the footage. It was in the story being told about the footage. That's when everything changed. After the hearing, Claire ran down the courthouse hallway, her sneakers squeaking again, her binder bouncing against her side. Nora caught up, breathless. Claire, stop. Claire spun. She lied. That still frame is from a different camera. Nora's eyes narrowed. How do you know? Claire opened her binder to a page she'd printed from Stanton Industries' own public safety brochure, the one they'd posted for employees. It showed a map of camera zones with IDs. Claire tapped it. Camera 4 covers the loading bay corridor. Camera 2 covers the north hallway. The ID in the corner of the still is C4LB. That's loading bay. Nora stared. If that's true. It is, Claire said. And if they switched cameras, they could switch anything. Nora swallowed. We need Clara. They found Clara Grant in the hallway outside the clerk's office, holding a laptop bag like she lived in it. Nora spoke quickly. They introduced a still frame. Claimed it's from camera 2. Claire blurted. It's camera 4. Clara's eyes sharpened. Show me. Claire held up the printout. Clara leaned in, then nodded once. That is a different camera ID. Nora's voice tightened. So the prosecutor misrepresented it. Clara's face stayed calm, but her eyes hardened. Or someone misrepresented it to her. Claire's voice dropped. Victor Stanton. Claire didn't argue. She just said, if they're swapping camera sources, we need the original drive, the original export logs, and the system's camera configuration file. Nora exhaled, and they won't give it. Clara looked toward the courtroom doors. Then you file a motion to compel, and you ask for sanctions if they refuse. Claire's hand shook. Will the judge do it? Nora's expression tightened. Judge Hale doesn't like being embarrassed. If we prove the state relied on tainted evidence, he'll have to act. But then, the night before the motion hearing, Claire's phone buzzed with a number she didn't recognize. She answered anyway. A man's voice, low and tense. Is this Claire Bennett? Her throat tightened. Yes, I'm calling about your father. The man said. You don't know me. My name is Raymond Hale. Claire froze. That's the judge, she whispered. No. The man corrected gently. This is Detective Raymond Hale with Ridgeway Police Department. Claire's stomach dropped again. Same name. Different person. She grabbed a pen, hands shaking. Okay. Detective Hale's voice was careful. I'm not supposed to contact you directly, but I'm contacting you as a witness, not through the court. Your father's case, it's getting attention. Claire's voice tightened. From who? The detective hesitated. From people who don't usually care about county cases. Claire's mouth went dry. Victor Stanton. Silence. Then listen, the detective said. If you have any evidence that the CCTV was altered, you need to preserve it and bring it through your attorney. Do not confront anyone at Stanton Industries. Do you understand? Claire's heart pounded. Why are you warning me? The detective's voice dropped. Because 2 officers were instructed not to push this case too hard, and that's not normal. One detail didn't fit, and now it wasn't just about video. It was about power. The next morning, courtroom 3B felt different. The laughter was gone. The air was heavier, like everyone had heard the same rumor and didn't want to say it out loud. Nora Blake stood to argue the motion. Clara Grant sat behind her, calm, prepared. Daniel Brooks looked like he'd slept in his clothes. Judge Raymond Hale entered and took his seat, expression unreadable. Diane Marshall stood with a thicker file than before. Too thick. Nora spoke first. Your Honor, we move to compel Stanton Industries to produce the original CCTV export files, the original drive, and the system logs related to the alleged incident on September 14th. Diane's voice was sharp. The defense is on a fishing expedition. Nora didn't flinch. We have reason to believe the footage has been altered. We have an independent forensic analyst prepared to testify. Judge Hale's gaze slid to Clara. Ms. Grant, you're prepared to swear to that? Clara rose. Yes, Your Honor. She was sworn in. The clerk administered the oath. Clara's voice stayed steady as stone. Nora asked, Ms. Grant, did you analyze the CCTV drive provided by Stanton Industries? Yes. What did you find? Clara took a breath. The file labeled as original footage was created hours after the alleged event. The video stream shows discontinuities consistent with edits or re-exports. The timestamp overlay appears to be added during export. Additionally, a still frame introduced by the state appears to originate from a different camera than represented. Diane stepped forward fast. Objection. Speculation. Clara's eyes flicked to the judge. It's not speculation. The camera ID string embedded in the frame indicates a different source. Judge Hale held up a hand. Overruled. Continue. Diane's jaw tightened. Nora asked, could these findings be explained by normal system behavior? Clara nodded. Some can. Exports can occur later. Overlays can be added. But the combination, creation times, splice points, mismatched camera IDs, warrants access to the original system logs and original export files to confirm authenticity. Diane's voice sharpened. Or it warrants acknowledging the defense manipulated their copy. Clara's gaze stayed calm. We created a forensic image using a write blocker and generated hash values. Any alteration would change those hashes. Diane's eyes narrowed. And who witnessed your process? Nora answered. I did. Diane turned to the judge. Your Honor, the defense is accusing a respected company of tampering based on technical jargon. This court should not indulge it. Judge Hale's eyes were cold now. Ms. Marshall, this isn't jargon. This is evidence integrity. He leaned forward. Why did your office accept a drive directly from a private party without law enforcement retrieval? Diane hesitated. Because the company cooperated. Judge Hale's voice cut sharper. Cooperation isn't custody. That's when everything changed. He turned to Diane. You will produce a complete chain of custody record for every digital exhibit, in this case, by end of day. If you can't, this court will consider suppression. Diane's face tightened. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Hale turned to Nora. Motion to compel is granted. Stanton Industries will produce the original CCTV export, the original drive, and all related system logs. Failure to comply will result in sanctions. The gavel hit once, and for the first time, Victor Stanton's name felt less like a statue and more like a target. But then, 2 days later, Stanton Industries produced a drive. This one came in an actual evidence bag. A shiny sticker sealed it, and a letter claimed, original footage attached. Clara Grant looked at the bag and didn't even touch it yet. She asked one question instead. Where's the police property receipt? Nora flipped the paperwork. Her face tightened. It's not here. Clara exhaled slowly. Then it's not chain of custody. It's packaging. They brought it to courtroom 3B anyway. Under oath, Clara imaged the new drive, generated hash values, opened the file, and then she paused. Not for a second. For a long, heavy moment. Nora whispered, What? Clara turned her laptop slightly so Nora and Claire could see. The file structure was wrong. Not corrupt. Wrong. This drive didn't come from the same system, Clara said quietly. Claire's throat tightened. How can you tell? Clara pointed to the metadata headers. Different firmware signature. Different camera codec profile. Different naming convention. Nora's eyes widened. So they gave us a different systems file. Clara's gaze hardened. Or they rebuilt the file to look like it came from their system. Claire felt cold spread through her chest. Because if someone was rebuilding files, they weren't panicking. They were planning. One detail didn't fit, and now the whole case smelled like design. At trial, the state played their video again, confident. They called Victor Stanton's security manager to the stand. A clean-cut man in a suit, voice smooth. I recognize Mr. Brooks. I saw him removing the equipment case. Nora cross-examined carefully. You saw him live. I saw the footage. Did you personally export it? Yes. What software did you use? The security manager blinked. Our system software. Nora pressed. Name it. He hesitated. Stanton SecureView. Claire's eyes flicked to Claire. Claire leaned to Nora, whispering fast. SecureView is their badge software, not their CCTV platform. I printed the manual. Nora's heart thumped once, but she kept her face neutral. What they found next shocked everyone. Nora turned back to the witness. So you used SecureView to export video? Yes. Nora held up a booklet Claire had printed, Stanton Industries' own employee training guide, stamped with the document code. Isn't SecureView the badge access platform? Nora asked. And isn't your CCTV platform called Stanton Vision Grid? The security manager's lips tightened. Diane Marshall snapped. Objection. Relevance. Judge Hale leaned forward. Overruled. Answer. The witness swallowed. I might be mixing the names. Nora's voice stayed calm. Or you might be mixing the systems. The security manager stiffened. No. Nora's eyes narrowed. Then why does the file you provided show a firmware signature that doesn't match Vision Grid's camera hardware? Diane stood fast. Objection. Counsel is testifying. Judge Hale looked to Nora. Ms. Blake. Nora nodded once. Your Honor, permission to call our expert, Clara Grant, to address the technical foundation. Judge Hale's gaze held for a beat. Granted. Clara took the stand. She spoke clearly, without drama. She explained hashes, metadata, firmware signatures, codec profiles, how one camera system's files don't magically look like another's. Then she did the thing that made the room go silent. She pulled up two versions of the footage, the state's clip, and the version from the compelled drive. She zoomed in, frame by frame. At the exact moment the figure reached for the secure door, Clara paused. This frame, she said, exists in the state's clip. She clicked. In the compelled drive's version, she said, this frame does not exist. A ripple moved through the courtroom, like wine through dry leaves. Clara continued. That means one of these is not original. Frames don't vanish by accident. Not like this. Diane Marshall's face tightened. Your Honor, this is absurd. The defense is confusing the jury. Judge Hale's voice was ice. The only confusion is why the state's evidence doesn't match the produced original. But then, Victor Stanton himself walked into the courtroom. Not escorted. Not nervous. He walked like the courthouse belonged to him. He sat behind Diane Marshall, close enough to whisper. Claire felt her stomach twist. Nora's hands tightened on her pen. Victor's eyes scanned the room and landed on Claire like she was a stain. That was when Diane launched her counterattack. She stood and held up a new exhibit. Your Honor, we have additional video, she said. A clearer angle. Claire's chest tightened. Another angle. Another surprise. The new clip showed the figure's face more clearly. And for a second, the room believed it. Daniel Brooks looked like he might collapse. Diane's voice rose. This is the defendant. The defense wants to distract you with technicalities, but the truth is on screen. Nora's mouth went dry. Claire stared harder than anyone else. And then she saw it. The lighting on the figure's face didn't match the corridor's fluorescent wash. The shadow angle was wrong, and the reflection in the glass door showed something that shouldn't exist. A camera that wasn't there. One detail didn't fit, and Claire felt her whole body lock onto it. She whispered to Nora, urgent, "It's composited." Nora swallowed. "We need proof." Claire's mind raced. Then she did something she'd never done before. She stood. The bailiff immediately moved. Judge Hale's voice snapped. "Miss Bennett, sit down." Claire didn't. Her voice shook, but it carried. "Your Honor," she said, "I know I'm not counsel, but I have something that affects the integrity of Exhibit 12. The bailiff reached for her elbow. Judge Hale's eyes flashed. "One sentence, Miss Bennett." Claire's hand shook, but she lifted one page from her binder, an affidavit. "It's a sworn statement," she said, "from Evelyn Carter." The courtroom shifted at the name. Evelyn Carter was a retired compliance officer from Stanton Industries. Her name had been on old corporate newsletters Claire had dug up at the library. She'd been quiet for years. Nora's eyes widened. "Claire, where did you get that?" Claire's voice trembled. "She contacted us last night. She said she couldn't live with it anymore." Judge Hale's expression tightened. "Approach." Nora stepped forward quickly, took the affidavit, and handed it to the clerk. The clerk marked it, stamped it, and passed it to the bench. Judge Hale read, eyes moving fast. Then he looked up, face hard. What they found next shocked everyone. He turned to Diane Marshall. "Ms. Marshall, did your office know a former Stanton compliance officer alleges internal manipulation of digital evidence and coercion of witnesses?" Diane's face went pale. "Your Honor, we—" Judge Hale's voice cut through. "Answer." Diane swallowed. "No." Judge Hale's gaze slid to Victor Stanton. Victor didn't blink. Judge Hale leaned forward. "Ms. Carter is here?" Nora rose. "Yes, Your Honor. She is prepared to testify." The room went silent as Evelyn Carter walked in. 67. Gray hair pulled back tight. Calm face. The kind of person who'd spent a lifetime being ignored until it was convenient not to. She was sworn in. Nora asked gently, "Miss Carter, why are you here today?" Evelyn's voice was steady. "Because I watched my company ruin people to protect a man's image. And I'm done." Diane stood fast. Objection. Prejudice. Judge Hale didn't even look at her. Overruled. Evelyn looked straight at the screen where the state's new clip had just played. "That video wasn't generated by our CCTV platform," she said. "It was produced." Gasps. Victor Stanton leaned forward, whispering to Diane. Evelyn continued. "When I worked in compliance, I raised concerns about evidence handling. I was told to stay quiet. I didn't. I was forced out." Claire's throat tightened. Flashback hit like a punch. Her mother, at the kitchen table, eyes tired, whispering about a colleague who got punished for asking the wrong questions. "Sometimes the truth isn't punished because it's wrong," her mom had said. "It's punished because it's inconvenient." Claire had promised she wouldn't let inconvenient truth die quietly. But then, Diane's voice sharpened. "Miss Carter, you're disgruntled. You were terminated. You have motive to smear the company." Evelyn didn't flinch. "I retired. I took my pension. And I kept records." Nora asked softly, "What records?" Evelyn nodded toward Clara Grant. "Ask your expert to verify the file structure on the state's clip. It won't match Stanton Vision Grid, because it wasn't exported. It was assembled." Judge Hale's jaw tightened. "Ms. Grant." Clara rose again, sworn already calm. She explained what assembly looked like in files, how composited footage carries rendering artifacts, inconsistent metadata, mismatched compression blocks. Then she pointed out the reflection inconsistency Claire had noticed. "The reflection shows a lens flare pattern consistent with a different camera model," Clara said. "It suggests layering." The courtroom buzzed. Diane's face tightened. "Your Honor, even if there are questions, the defendant still had access, still had motive." Judge Hale's voice turned deadly quiet. "Motive doesn't convict. Evidence does." Then Judge Hale did something nobody expected. He ordered the jury out. He turned this into a hearing on the state's conduct. He looked at Diane Marshall. Ms. Marshall, if you presented altered evidence, that's not just a problem for your case. That's a problem for your license. Diane's hands trembled slightly. Your Honor, I relied on what Stanton provided. Judge Hale's eyes narrowed. Then we find out who provided it. He looked at Victor Stanton. Mr. Stanton, stand. Victor's smile was gone now. He rose slowly. Judge Hale's voice was sharp. You are not on trial in this courtroom yet, but I am ordering an immediate referral for investigation into evidence tampering. Victor's jaw tightened. This is outrageous. Judge Hale leaned forward. No, outrageous is walking into my courtroom with fabricated exhibits and thinking I won't notice. That's when everything changed, because the security manager, Victor Stanton's own witness, started sweating. His eyes darted. His hands gripped the rail. Judge Hale's gaze snapped to him. Sir, sit. The witness swallowed. Your Honor, Diane hissed. Don't. The witness's voice cracked anyway. I didn't make it. I didn't edit it. The room froze. Judge Hale's voice was low. Then who did? The witness swallowed hard. Victor's team. The executive IT group. They said it had to match the story. A sound like air leaving the room. Victor Stanton's face went stiff. Nora's eyes widened. Claire felt her knees threaten to buckle, but she stayed standing inside herself. Judge Hale's voice cut. Bailiff, mark that statement. The witness panicked. I can sign something. I can. Judge Hale nodded once. You will give an affidavit, under penalty of perjury. Right now. Diane Marshall looked like she'd been punched. Victor Stanton leaned forward like he might stand, then stopped when the bailiff's hand hovered near his sidearm. Judge Hale looked at Daniel Brooks. Mr. Brooks, based on the state's reliance on questionable evidence and credible allegations of tampering, this court finds the evidence insufficient to proceed. Daniel's eyes filled. Judge Hale's gavel lifted. Charges are dismissed, he said. Daniel collapsed into the chair like someone cut his strings. Claire's breath finally broke free. But then, Judge Hale didn't stop there. He turned to Diane Marshall. Ms. Marshall, you will deliver every piece of digital evidence your office received from Stanton Industries to this court for review. Your office will also notify your supervisor and cooperate with any investigation. Diane's voice was tiny. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Hale turned to Victor Stanton. Mr. Stanton, you are ordered to preserve all related digital systems. If anything disappears, the consequences will be immediate. Victor's voice was cold. You're making a mistake. Judge Hale's eyes didn't blink. No, I'm correcting one. As the courtroom emptied, whispers followed Claire like shadows. Some people looked at her with admiration. Others looked at her like she'd committed a crime by refusing to stay small. In the hallway, Daniel grabbed her hands like he needed to feel she was real. You saved me, he whispered, voice breaking. Claire shook her head. I didn't save you. The truth did. Nora Blake stepped closer, eyes wet. You did the work, Claire. Claire swallowed. We did. Claire glanced it back, calm, approving. You saw what professionals miss sometimes, she said quietly. That's rare. Claire's throat tightened. It shouldn't be rare. Claire nodded once. It shouldn't. But then, the fallout came fast. Reporters camped outside Ridgway County Courthouse, Ridgway, Westmont, asking questions that made it sound like a scandal, not a life. Did the DA knowingly present forged evidence? Is Stanton Industries under investigation? Who else was framed? Daniel Brooks got anonymous calls. Threats without words, just breathing, then silence. Nora's office received complaints. Claire's business got review bombed online by accounts with no history. And Claire started looking over her shoulder in school, hallways like the world had grown teeth. One detail didn't fit, and Claire realized something darker. This case wasn't an accident. It was a pattern. Evelyn Carter met them in a quiet courthouse conference room. Door closed, lights humming. She looked at Claire with tired eyes. Victor didn't start with your dad, Evelyn said. He's been doing this for years. Scapegoats, quick accusations, a clean public image. Claire's hands clenched. How many? Evelyn swallowed. Enough that a federal task force is going to care when they see the evidence trail. Claire's chest tightened. So my dad wasn't the first. Evelyn shook her head. No, he was just the one who had a daughter who refused to let a lie stand. Nora leaned forward. Miss Carter, why did you pick now? Evelyn's gaze flicked to Claire. Because I watched a judge laugh at a child, and then I watched that child outwork an entire system. It reminded me what courage looks like. Claire swallowed. She thought of her mother again, of that kitchen table, of the promise. That's when everything changed. Because Claire didn't go back to being just a teenager after that. She couldn't. Not after seeing how easily a life could be targeted by a file and a confident voice. So she made a plan. Not a dramatic one. A real one. She joined the Ridgeway High mock trial team. And for the first time, she wasn't playing pretend. She was learning procedure. She took online courses in digital forensics, not because it sounded cool, but because she'd seen what happens when nobody in the room understands the evidence. She shadowed Clara Grant on weekends, watching her document processes, write reports, explain findings in plain language. And when people asked her why, Claire answered the same way every time. Because evidence should be louder than power. The years moved. The Stanton investigation widened. More employees came forward. More stories surfaced, quietly at first, then with headlines, when the proof became impossible to ignore. Daniel Brooks got his job back. A small company that didn't have marble lobbies or donor plaques. He didn't care. He just wanted peace. Nora Blake grew into her career, stronger each year, less afraid to challenge people with influence. Clara Grant's name became known in the region for one thing. She didn't bend. And Claire Bennett kept going. But then, 5 years later, courtroom 3B filled again. Same polished wood, same flag, same hush when the bailiff called all rise. Judge Raymond Hale entered, hair a little more gray, eyes still sharp. He sat, adjusted his glasses, and looked at the case in front of him. The defendant at the table was nervous, hands shaking, accused of tampering with company systems. A case built on digital evidence again. At counsel table stood a young woman in a tailored suit that fit like it was made for her. Claire Bennett, now 21, now officially certified in digital forensics, now in law school's final stretch, working under supervision as part of a legal clinic, allowed to stand, allowed to speak, allowed to fight. Judge Hale looked up, and for the first time, his stern face softened in recognition. Claire met his gaze without flinching. The courtroom waited. Claire stood, and her voice was steady. Your Honor, she said, I'll defend my client. Judge Hale didn't laugh, not even a smile. He nodded once, respectful, almost solemn, and he answered with the line that flipped the world back into balance. Proceed, Ms. Bennett. This court is listening now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel.